Hey, it's Eldon. Welcome back to another episode of Crazy Dad's Garage. We are going to be launching into working on the Crazy Dad C10, my grandpa's C10 that we picked up last summer. So my weather's getting better here in east central Utah where I live, and getting where I can finally get outside and enjoy doing something. At my age, I don't care if I could get outside and work in the snow. I just don't want to. So that's one of the reasons we've stalled out here on making videos too much. But we're back. We got some nice days showing up now, and we'll be doing some stuff to move that project along. So I'm going to flip the camera around here, show you a little bit of what we've been doing. The rat rod sat in the garage. It broke down on me. A couple months ago, and just been so cold I haven't wanted to mess with it, but I was able to get it fixed up, and so I'm going to flip the camera around here, tell you a little bit about that, and move on to what we're going to be doing to move the C10 forward. Alright, here's the rat rod. Big thing that we had happen on it, I started blowing fuses on it and couldn't figure out what the heck was happening. It would start and run just fine, but when I'd shut it off, then it wouldn't restart again because it had blown a fuse. And I got really irritated tracking that down, trying to see what was going on. And finally, I figured out here the other day, I eliminated it down to my starter solenoid. And I wasn't 100% sure, but that's when it seemed to be kicking that fuse off. So I went out and bought another starter solenoid, put on it, and bingo, it worked. So we had it back on the road here over the weekend. My brother was here yesterday, and we went for some rides in it just for the fun of it. But so I got her back going, got up and running. So excited about that project. It's been a lot of fun. I've had this wooden bed made for it that I've never showed you before, I don't think, but I threw it in here. Makes a great workbench when I'm working on the other stuff. So anyway, here we go. What we're going to do, so I never did finish up the Will It Start video on the motor that's in the truck, and one of the reasons that I keep putting that off, I think I've got it freed up where it would start. In fact, I'm positive it would start, but it's got a broken exhaust manifold, so the exhaust is off of it, and as you can see, I live in a pretty tight little neighborhood here, and I don't want to start that thing out and blast my neighbors out. So I don't know if I'll actually ever finish that video and show that one running, because I don't need to. But this block right here is the one that I took out of the square body that I put the 454 in, and got this one pulled out. I don't know if you remember the story on it or not, but I got the truck from a friend, and he had just rebuilt the motor. Probably had less than 100 miles on it, and something locked up in it, and we did a video where we showed what that was. Had the wrist pin came loose on one of the cylinders and wrecked that piston and rod assembly and broke the bottom corner edge out of the cylinder. And so I got that 454 and swapped into that truck, got that one down the road, and but I had this one sitting here, and I'm going, it's got all new parts in it, and I think I could fix the block. So I took it over to the machine shop, and they were able to sleeve the block for me and save it. So I've got a brand new 4-bolt main block here. It's bored 60 over. Got a new sleeve in it right here. And that's got the thing back where it needs to be. So I ordered up all the parts for it. I've got 100 miles on the rebuild. 6 of the pistons were good, but I couldn't buy them individually, so I got a whole new set of pistons and piston rings. Got a new rod to replace that bad one. And so we're in the process now of getting everything ready to go back in. Back over here. All right, there's my Christmas present. Got myself a new welding helmet. But yeah, so I've got a new rod. And this is my old one. New gasket set, new pistons, got rings, and I think I got an oil pump for it and some other things just to be sure. And so we're going to start the process of putting that thing all back together now. And what I'm working on today on it I pulled it out there, and I want to paint it a different color so that it looks kind of sharp. There's a crankshaft for it, and one of my exhaust manifolds. I think that carb's off the 454. Actually, show you over here. I've got all of the engine parts for that thing. So this one, they're all stacked in there in all different shapes and sizes. Oh, here's the rest of them in there. So I got all these parts to put the thing back together, and I think I'm going to be in this motor less than $500, which will allow me, probably because it's going in a keeper and I want to dress this truck up a little bit more, I'm probably going to get myself some nice showy valve covers and stuff to put on it. Still debating that. I have to sell a couple other projects and spare parts that are sitting around here to pick up that stuff. But anyway, so what I'm working on right now is using my wire wheel there to clean off the old paint as much as I can. And I'm not going to, this doesn't have to be great. This truck is not going to be a show truck. I just want it to look acceptable when I open the hood up. So I'm cleaning that paint off, and I'll hone the cylinders out. Again, some of them might be okay, but I'm going to re-hone the cylinders, and then we're going to start putting this thing back together. So I'm not going to pretend to be the engine building guru on here. I've done a lot of them, but there's a lot of guys online and on YouTube that are pros at it. I'm going to let them walk you through most of the details. So I'm just going to show you the basics here of putting this thing back together, and we'll just make a fun video out of how this works, and then we'll be ready to drop it in the truck here when I get the old one pulled out. So that's what I'm working on right now. I'm going to not bore you with me grinding paint off all day, but that's my next step, and when I get that done, I'll come back and show you what it looks like as we get ready to progress through to the next things. Okay, there it is after we've spent an hour or so wire brushing it, and it's not perfect, but it's good enough for what we're going to be doing here. So I've got places like that. We got most of the paint off, except down on those freeze plugs, but that's good. That's going to make the paint stick a little better if we got the loose stuff off of it. So I think the next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to take my grinder, and we've got a bunch of really jagged casting marks like this, and I'm going to grind those smooth and clean that up a little bit. There were several places like that on here, and I think it just, from what I understand, those places like that actually make weak points as the engine heats and cools and vibrates. So I'm going to clean those up a little bit. It's not a huge deal. This is not a high performance engine by any stretch of the imagination. It's going to be just a nice rebuilt motor, but you know, why not? You got it out here, and then time's not a big issue. There's another one right there. So I'm going to dress it up just a little bit there, clean those up, and yeah, just for the fun of it. Now, I know that on racing engines, real high performance engines, they do spend a lot of time doing that kind of stuff, and I have gone around with a file, and I've eased all of these edges here so they're not sharp anymore. I've done that all the way around the block, top and bottom. That's just something you can do. Again, listen to the engine building experts. That's not me. But I did it just because I had the time, it was there, and I figured if I can do something that, you know, avoids a crack down the road, then more power to it right now, and I'll do that. So that'll be the next step. I'll get the grinder and show you that after I've got it done. There's some little things here. See this? There's a little chunk of metal that's cast in there. It's not a big deal. This engine's obviously run for 100,000 miles, but why not clean that up so that nothing happens that's going to knock that off and make it come loose. Just little things like that we're going to look out for here. So that'll be my next step, and then we'll be ready to mask it up and paint it before putting it back together. So I'm going to wrap up for today. Why? Because I want to. It's my day off. I'm going to go do something else fun too. So I'll be back and show you when I get that ground off and cleaned up a little bit. Okay, we moved back inside today because the weather isn't quite as nice. It's still not bad, but I just did what I talked about a minute ago on the video. I took the grinder, and as you can see, I've smoothed up a lot of those flash marks or casting marks on the thing. So I went those there. I touched them up and or ground them off with the grinder. Like this one here was very pronounced. Ground that off, and then I hit it with a file to kind of smooth it up a little bit more. And just several different places. Now I can't even see all of them, but there were some spots in here. This little area right here took a significant amount of flash out of there, and right here around the oil filter mount all the way along this area there was quite a bit of it, so we cleaned those up. And that's really about all the farther I'm going to go with the grinder part of this thing. So the next procedure I'm going to do here is clean up the gasket surfaces. And for that, this right here is my favorite tool. It's a little thing you can chuck into your drill, and it's got a rubber pad on it, and then has these Scotch-Brite spiral lock things that go on there. This is a Scotch-Brite pad. And by just taking that in my angle drill, I can go along here and it grinds these up nice and pretty, and we'll leave them rust-free and gasket-free. And so it'll have us a nice clean surface there to mount the gaskets to and mask around while I'm taping and all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be my next thing that I'm going to do. So I'll show you how that looks once I get it all done here. And I'm going to do all of these surfaces. I'm going to do this front timing cover mount, the water pump gasket surfaces, as well as the head gasket and the intake surfaces on the upper side. So I will do that, come back, show you the end result of that one here in just a few minutes. Okay, here's some of the results of that cleaning that up with that Scotch-Brite wheel. So on this head surface here, I've done this area out here, except for right around the pin there. But you get over here, and I've not done this area, and you can still see some of the blue gasket stuff remaining on there. Now, I did scrape this block completely down with a razor blade, which makes for an interesting discussion here, because with the razor blade, I've gotten that about as clean as I can get it. And you can see that I'm not getting much of anything off of there. There's a spot in my razor blade, but I'm really not pulling off. And see right there, we've got some blue gasket material, and that's really not anything else going to come off of there. So back in the good old days, I would have just put my heads on in that shape right there. But since they've invented these Scotch-Brite wheels, I've taken to cleaning it where I can really get down to the bare metal, and I think it just gives you a little bit better cleaning and sealing job there. If you look closely here, you're going to see some of the results, like right in there, of the corrosion and stuff that your antifreeze can cause on your block. You can see right there, we've got a little line going there, but it's so fine that I can almost not feel it with my fingernail. But that's why on a block like this, I like to use a head gasket that's not just a metal shim style head gasket, but one that's got some actual sealing material on it to be able to do that. If I had decked this block, then I would have a perfectly smooth surface along here that a nice new steel head gasket would seal to, and I would be able to do that. But with an older block like this, I am just going to clean it up and call it good. I'll probably double check it here. I haven't done this yet, with a straight edge across from here over to here, and then from here up to that other corner up there. just to make sure that I'm not seeing daylight under there, and if I am, then that'll mean I need to take this in and get the block decked. But anyway, that's what I'm after right now. I've gone down here, cleaned up those intake manifold mounting surfaces. That's something else I was going to show you. For whatever reason, there's a lot of little defects along in here. Somebody has either hit this one with something or moved it around on the garage floor a lot or something, but it's got a lot of nicks in it, and that's one of several reasons that I like to use a nice good bead of silicone on there with those gaskets. I believe that not always in that spot do you get a tight seal from the manifold onto the gasket, so silicone helps to fill that gap up. Now, there's a lot of guys that disagree with me on that, and that's fine. If that's your opinion, you do it the way you would like to. But that's how I like to do it. So, I'm going to finish up that deck surface there, and then I still haven't tackled the front timing cover yet. But that's what I'm going to do on that step, and then I'll be back after I think about what I'm going to show you next. Alright, there we go. Got her all cleaned up that way. Everything looks nice and shiny there. There we go. Front end, down the sides, and the bottom is too. I'm not going to worry about showing you that. So, as I was cleaning it up here, I ran across this pad right here, which has the numbers on it. I thought, well, just for fun, let's go see if we can tell what this actually came out as. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep it in the light there. But what I found out is this is the place where the VIN tag or VIN number of the vehicle is put on here, from what I can tell. And my code, apparently this last three letters, the TY and the X, are kind of the identifying letters on here, but I actually couldn't find TYX. I could find TYA and TYB and one other one. I can't remember what it was. So anyway, that didn't get me really anywhere what I wanted to, but I did have some fun back here. Because back here on the back of the engine above the flywheel, you have a engine casting number here for your block. You have a date code right here, which I still haven't learned how to read that, so I'm not too worried about it. But what was interesting is I plugged in this casting number right here, 3970010. That tells me that originally this block was cast for a 1969 small block Chevy, and it was actually a 302 4-bolt main for a Z28 Camaro. So that's what this casting was created for. Now, that doesn't mean that this engine actually came out of a 69 Z28. I don't know that for sure. My friend who got this was under the impression that this was one of Chevy's Target Master motors, which there's a possibility that they took several standard block castings from their inventory and use those to create those Target motors. I don't know for sure. But anyway, that is the correct casting for a high performance 302 that went in the Z28s that was in 69. That was their competitor to the Boss 302 Mustang. So we've got a fundamentally sound, great starting point for a block here, if we were going to, especially if we're going to do something high performance. So I'm happy with that. It means I've got a really sound starting point. And that's the biggest thing I wanted to bring up. That's kind of fun. But that number right there was really the only one I could get a serious good identification on. So that leaves me with where do we go next here. And I'm thinking that I'm actually ready now to clean this thing up and mask off the surfaces that I'm not going to paint, and then to go ahead and paint that. And I'm going to show you kind of a little system that I developed here for painting this, because a lot of time when you paint this block, you'll just mask off this entire machine surface here and the other machine surfaces. But the reality of it is that your head and the head gasket come down here and only covers like this area right here. And so then you have this hanging out, that hanging out, and this hanging out down in this corner. And all of those over time, they start out as nice bare metal, but all those over time they turn rusty. And so to prevent that, what I'm going to do is go in here and mask off this entire section, and then I'm going to lay a head gasket over that and use a razor blade to cut around the edges of that gasket. And when I peel off this masking tape here, that will allow me to paint these areas that are normally exposed. So that's probably where I'll go to next. Excuse me. I'm going to blow it off real good and start there. But anyway, I think I probably won't do that tonight. Probably start in and do that the next time I get out here to work on it. But that is where we're at on the engine for the Crazy Dad C10. So just a fun little bit of trivia there to find out I actually got the same block that the 302 Z28s had. I like that. Okay, here we go. We've got the machine surfaces taped off with masking tape here, all the way here. And I'm not going to worry about these other areas here because I'm going to cover those with a towel probably just to keep the overspray off of them. And the worst case scenario, if I did get some overspray here, I'll just go back with my Scotch-Brite pad there and scuff that back off, and we'll get it where we want it to. So what I do, once I've got that in place, I've already done the other side here, so I'll remove my head gasket from that side. At least I think I will. There we go. There, got it off. Alright. Now we're going to put that back on this side because they're reversible. Push it over the pin. Get that one there. Push this one over the pin. Sorry, that was a two-hander. And that then gives us the template for where to cut our tape out. So take my handy dandy razor blade here and we'll just run right down the side of that head gasket. Well, this is tricky, trying to film and cut tape all at the same time. Hopefully we can give you an angle you can see at here. Along the bottom edge here I've got some not straight parts on the head gasket, so I got to be careful that I follow them. And this doesn't have to be perfect. This is not like this is on the outside of your car or truck where you're really going to see it a lot. But anyway, so there we go. Back to another curved spot. And if I had two hands, I'd actually be holding the gasket down flush to the surface here to get a little better job on it. But this is going to work out just fine for what I'm trying to show you here. So that one, now we'll run down this side. I know this seems like kind of an obvious thing to be making a video of, but hey, that's part of what we're doing here. Come across there to get that loose. Same thing over here. And now I can just start peeling that tape off. Theoretically, we've got it cut all the way through, but there we go. So that's got that off. Looks like I probably need to get back here with my razor blade and make a little bit deeper cut through that one. There we go. So anyway, I think you see my point here is you get all that paint peel or tape peeled off, and then it's going to look like this over here after you get it done. So you see we still got machined surface there that's not going to be covered by anything, so we want those surfaces painted. That's why I choose to do it this way. Press that down so it doesn't get any overspray back up underneath it. But there you go. Now we're got ourselves a nice decent line all the way along there, and I will probably come back and touch this up a little bit. Got a little bit of tape residue there that I might want to clean up. So anyway, we'll do that there. I'll do that over these surfaces up here where the intake manifold goes, and then I'll get back here and show you what I've actually accomplished when I get that all done. So I'll tape that up. I'm going to go ahead and tape up timing chain cover and water pump outlets there. I'll do the fuel pump outlet down here and the oil pan rails up down there on the bottom of the engine, and anything else that I think needs to be done. So there you go. That just gives you an idea of what I'm doing, and then I'll come back when I've got that all put together. Alright, there we are. We're ready to start painting it. So I've got everything masked off. Told you I was going to put cardboard on it, but I got thinking at the last minute, why not just do it with tape and paper, and then I don't have to keep worrying about moving stuff. Anyway, so we're ready to start spraying some paint on it. I went down to my local, I think this was an AutoZone, and I got some Duplicolor engine paints, and I'm going to be priming it first, and then I got a real cool looking copper color, and I really like that dark copper, and so I'm going to spray this block and the heads that color, and then I'll clear coat it. So I'll go through here and do this, and I'll spray the primer on it, show you that, then we'll do it one step at a time, show you each step as we go. I'm not going to bore you with how I'm actually spraying it. Just you want to put it on there in fairly light coats, follow the directions on the can, and it may take you multiple coats to actually get the thing well covered. But the other reason that I'm doing it at this stage, before I've assembled anything, because the whole assembly process, you're using oil and grease, and it's going to get all over everything. And right now I've got a clean block, and I just don't want to fight not having it stick good. So cleaned it off with brake cleaner and blown all the dust off of it after I got done working on it. And so now I'm going to prime it, and I'll be back and show you the result of that in a little bit. Here we go. So I got a good coat of primer on there. Reading the instructions on the can, it says to let it sit for, well, it actually says to apply the color coat within an hour of doing this. I'm working in the cold here, and so it's not as warm as this should be, but I think we're going to be okay. I'm going to give it about 20 minutes or so, and then I'll come back out here and spray the color on it. So there you go. We'll be back as I get ready to do that process. In fact, I'll just show you that when it's done. I don't think I need to go through a ton of explanation here. There we have it. 2 coats of this nice new copper paint now. I'll walk around it here and make sure I don't get my coat in it as I'm doing it. But this is going to look really pretty. Actually, through the camera, it almost looks like Chevy engine orange, right? But it's not. It's a new dark copper color. I really like this. Probably going to incorporate this color a lot into the truck. It's really become one of my favorite colors for a car. So anyway, got that all done now. I'm going to let that cure, and then I will come out and spray a coat of engine clear on it, and that will wrap it up. And leave this where we got the block ready to start working on it and assembling it. So yeah, I'm really happy with the way this is turning out, and we'll be back after we get some clear on it. Alright, here it is with the clear coat on it. Not going to look hardly any different, I'm sure, from what you saw in that last segment there, but it's really turned out nice. I really like the way it's shining up there, and I think this is going to make a really sharp looking motor. So that's kind of it. I will come back tomorrow and untape this and show you what it looks like after it's all dried up. And then we'll be on to the next procedure on it. Talk to you then. Okay, this is the point where it gets fun, when you take the masking tape off and see what you've actually accomplished here. So I'm just going to do that here and see what we've produced. Yeah. When I started seeing this color a few years ago, several years ago probably now, seems like a few to me because this was never a popular color when I was younger, but has become one in recent years. This has really grown on me, and I really like this particular shade of it. It's got that little butterscotch flavor to it in the copper. But here we go, got everything stripped off here. We've got the front of the motor cleared off. Anyway, this is going to allow me to turn this engine into something that really is part of the artwork to me of old cars. I like to be creative with color, and sticking with our low buck theme, I try to do that with paint, especially out of a spray can if I can, and make things come out and look pretty. So as I go through the process of putting this motor together, I'm going to show you kind of how I like to do that. Next thing I'm going to do is go through the same process with the cylinder heads, so that I'll have a long block that's all this copper color. And then, I don't know, I just saw an entire set of valve covers, oil pan, and air cleaner the other day that was a black cover in cast aluminum that I really liked, and if I can figure out how to put the money together, I think I'm going to try to get those, because it would really add to the look that I'm trying to get here. So it's going to be a little bit more money than I would normally do on a low buck thing, but you could do this exact same thing. In fact, my original plan was to take the factory valve covers and things like that and paint them probably a black color to contrast with this. But when I saw that, I've got to get a new oil pan anyway, because when this engine came apart originally, when that wrist pin gave way, it messed up the old oil pan. So I need to get one anyway, and I was really hoping to find some cast aluminum valve covers for a decent price, and this whole set that I saw was actually not too bad a price. So if I can get the budget together, I'm going to go that way. It'll probably be one of the few bucks up things that I do on this truck. But anyway, there we go. I'm going to finish taking this masking tape off camera, and I'll show you probably the cylinder heads after I get them done. I don't know. I'm not sure where I'll wrap this video up, but anyway, we'll talk to you here shortly. Okay, so I think I'm going to wrap up the block video here with this little last piece. I just took a cylinder hone and honed all these cylinders again, because the thing had about, like I said, about 100 miles on it, and I'm sure the old rings had started to seat on it and worn the crosshatch out of the cylinder, and especially on this one that was replaced, it needed honed. So I got those all honed up and we're ready to go, and that's really the last big preparation step I'm going to do on the block. But like I said, I'm really pleased with the way this is turning out. I love that color. I think by the time we get the thing all put together, we're going to have a decent little engine on it. It's I guess the specs basically of what I've got in the thing. So the pistons are 10-to-1 flat top pistons in this block. Like I said, we've got a block that originally was cast for a 69 Z28 302 with the 4-bolt mains, so we've got good 4-bolt mains in it. We've got 10-to-1 pistons, although they are cast pistons, and they have moly rings in it. The cam is going to be a torque RV grind, so this engine is going to be designed to drive, not to hot rod around or race in. So it's going to have an RV cam in it. We've got an Edelbrock Streetmaster aluminum manifold that will then put the stock Edelbrock carb back on it. And when I do the heads, I'm thinking about doing some real minor porting on them, clean up the exhaust so that it kind of flows as good as it can, and take any sharp bends out of the intakes so that we get what flow increases we can get there. So I'm not expecting this is going to make a lot of horsepower, but it should be a good solid driver motor for putting in this truck, and hopefully it'll last me a long time and just be fun to drive. It doesn't have to be blindingly fast, but be fun to have, you know, driving around town, take to work and things like that. So I'm loving this color. The more I look at it, the happier I am with that. I know in the video that the inside of the timing chain area looks blue, but that's really just cast iron. I think that's the lights playing tricks on us there. But I'm gonna wrap up this part of the build series here with our engine block prep and painting to get it all ready to start assembling it. And that's where we're going to wrap up with this episode of Crazy Dad's Garage. We'll be back shortly with another one as I go into prepping the heads and getting them ready. And then we'll start on the assembly of the short block and getting everything back together. So next we'll probably start on the heads. And that's where we're at, and we'll talk to you soon.